Okay, guys, welcome to another video. We're reacting to Are Marvel Movies Actually Dying by Penguins Zero. I've known about this guy for a long time, and I don't know why I say this guy. But, I really enjoy his takes on different things in pop culture, and I want to see what he's talking about here. Yeah, let's get into the video.
Of stubborn lip skin that I ripped off right before starting this recording, so my lip might bleed a little bit. Don't be concerned. That's just part of being 31 years old now. Even something as simple as taking a little bit of chapped lip skin off is enough to have me bleeding profusely, it seems. But you know what else is bleeding? Marvel at the box office. Now, this is a conversation in cinema that happens more frequently than people debating whether or not Sam and Frodo were gay. So many people since the end of Endgame have talked about how Marvel is dead and dying, and that superhero fatigue had finally reached its molten core where everyone was done with MCU and how bad the quality was. But despite all of that hoopla, pretty much all of the MCU projects did decently well for the most part. Like, even unanimously hated stinkers like Ant-Man Quantumania still generated like $500 million. But the quality did significantly decline, and a lot of people were getting tired of it. And some of them did actually not do well, like the Marvels. But on the whole, the MCU was still fine in the box office, but it was showing signs of weakness. Now, they've released two.
Attention! Brake! Brake! Watch out! Do you have to drive like you're in Formula One? But Mama,
It doesn't matter how many times you guys show me ads, YouTube. It doesn't matter how many times you show me ads. I will not pay for YouTube Premium. You guys are trying to stress me, and it's not going to work. We're going to skip as many ads as you guys decide to throw at us. Right, let's get back to it.
Decent movies back to back, Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four. But they're not exactly doing the billion-dollar nut busting that the MCU was known for. Fantastic Four is experiencing a 80% drop from its debut, so going into its second week here, it has declined significantly. It had a great start and it had incredibly strong word of mouth, but it doesn't seem like that's translating to asses in seats. And Thunderbolts was the same thing. People saw it, they were surprised by how good it was, saying, Marvel's fucking back, baby. Fuck all your seatbelts, because we are in it again. But then that also didn't have the strong.
You know what I think? I think, as well, fair enough, Marvel have been making some subpar movies in the years, but I just think there's a general fatigue that has to do with the Marvel movies. I think people are just slowly but getting slowly but surely getting tired of watching superhero flicks. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. There used to be a point in time where, oh my God, every time a movie is out from Marvel, we're running to the cinemas, or me and my friends are downloading fake versions just to watch it. But these days, it's like, okay, like maybe the most hyped ones, we're gonna go try and see it, you know? I think people are just moving on, and everything that has a beginning has an end, you know? Marvel had its run, it had its peak, and that's not to say they're going to go out of business and go bankrupt in the coming years. They will still have their core fan base and all, but I just think the general population are just tired. Not necessarily because they're making bad movies, and yes, they are making some terrible ones, but just not because of that. I think generally people are just tired of the genre, and you know, better to go out graceful than go out sad.
Strongest box office run, which is now leading to the bigger conversation that's been had a lot about the state of the MCU. Are people just tired of it? Is superhero fatigue really setting in now, finally? Or is it mainly just Marvel? Because Superman has done great in the box office. It has been fucking slapping in the box office, and it's a good movie. Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four are also good movies, especially in a sea of dog shit that Marvel had been farting out for quite a few years, with a few exceptions like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And now it's left a lot of people wondering, well, what the fuck's going on? Why are they not having strong box office performances when these are finally some decent films from Marvel again? And to be fair, I think it's a little overblown with Fantastic Four flopping and all of that with that narrative that's being spun. It's still at $370 million worldwide in its second weekend. That is still pretty solid, but against its budget and its marketing, it still needs to make like 450 million or something from the reports I read. Same with the Thunderbolts. The Thunderbolts generated 380 million total across its lifespan in theaters, and it needed about 450 million for that break even. So like it still does have a little ways to go, but it's not doing like dreadfully. Like I don't think all the Marvel execs are in full force panic mode, sweating, contemplating sitting on a cactus or something, like worried that it's all dried up and Marvel's dead. But it is less than you would expect for some actually good Marvel movies. It's an interesting topic because, again, this is a conversation that's been had a lot, but I had always just said, yeah, the films have gotten worse, but there's always going to be an audience for it. They're always going to make.
Yeah, I was basically just saying this. Like, there's always going to be an audience for Marvel movies, especially people who came from the comics and into, you know, and series like that and animations. I think there's always going to be some sort of profit, but I just think, Marvel needs to reduce their budget in making movies. Pay more attention to story, to dialogue, pay more attention to, actual execution than CGI and, blown out effects, and all these extra things. And yes, sometimes they're good, but when you do them too many times, it's just like another thing that's very unnecessary. So why are you spending $500 million on one movie when you could make two 200 million plus movies and make it good? You don't need too much to make a story great. You just need enough. And if you can do enough with small, then you're always going to get more. You're going to get, I don't know, like it's going to show up in the numbers that people are watching, because now you're doing less and you're making more, as opposed to doing way more and getting less. I don't know.
Like over $500 million. Turns out that is not the case. These are better movies than the ones that were coming before it and performing much better, but it really does seem like people are checking out. A lot of people are starting to view the MCU kind of like homework that you have to do, like prerequisite reading and watching the shows beforehand and catch up on like 5 and 6 movies just to be able to go watch one of the films and understand or appreciate it. So a lot of people found that to be kind of tedious. And also I think a lot of people were just tired of MCU in general, because they would release like 4 films a year, all of which were mediocre at best. And now they've finally got 2 like pretty strong films, but a lot of people just don't really care about the word of mouth. They're just kind of done with it, it seems. And to be honest, it's kind of hard to blame them. I can totally see why. With so many superhero movies coming out, and a lot of them in the last 5 or so years being really underwhelming, why would you keep getting excited and seeing every single new one? You know what I mean? Even the ones that do get a lot of hype and glaze, it's hard to just want to go see that, because then you still have to wonder, will I even understand it because I didn't watch the last couple and I didn't.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's a snowball effect. One thing leads into another and another and another, and then it just accumulates into this massive disinterest. So comes from general hero fatigue. People are just tired of superheroes flying around in capes, and all their idealistic worlds. And then apart from that, we have Marvel on the other hand making subpar movies that don't really, capture the audience and keep them in their seats. And so that added with the already growing general hero fatigue, you know, it just snowballs, and it just becomes this whole thing where people aren't watching some movies. So now, even if they go to the cinemas to watch one, they don't really understand it because they didn't watch the last one because they weren't interested. And it just snowballs into each other, and then that's it.
Didn't watch any of the shows. And in Thunderbolt's case and Fantastic Four's case, you don't need to. You can go in them and entirely enjoy them by their own merit. They stand on their own 2 legs, especially Fantastic Four. It is all self-contained. So it sucks to see that it's not doing well, but it's not like I blame the general audience for not going and seeing it. There has been way too many underwhelming superhero films for them to just blindly trust that this is finally a good one, right? But I don't think it's like superheroes in general, because Superman is proving that there is still a huge appetite for superhero movies. I think it's just Marvel has been so sullied by their bad movies over the last few years that people are just kind of yawning at it. Which puts Marvel in a weird spot because they finally had this come to Jesus moment and said, what if we made good movies? And then they
Like I said, there's always going to be an audience, but I don't think there's anything about Superman exactly that makes it a reasonable movie performance wise than the other movies. I just think it was a nice change of pace. It wasn't Henry Cavill this time. Not to say anybody's tired of Henry Cavill, but damn, that's glaze, isn't it? But like I just meant it's lightning in a bottle. I don't think it's about Superman itself, but more about the execution of Superman. Like it just happened to be, oh, interesting. This is something different. And then word of mouth just helped escalate that. So I don't think people heard Superman movies coming out and they're like, yeah, we're going. At least not most of them. Yeah. But then they did, and then they were like, oh, this is actually good. I think that's the difference.
fucking hoisted up the guy who suggested that like some kind of hero, you know? Like the big eureka moment. How about some good films? But they're not performing that well in the box office. So like it sucks to see that, and it's weird because now they do finally understand that they need to have quality films in order to stay competitive and stay generating unfathomable amounts of money. But the general audience has kind of turned their backs on them and don't really care to hop back into the Marvel train. So they have some good films, but now the audience isn't, ferociously starving to consume it anymore. But they still have, of course, like the core community of like Marvel enthusiasts that are going to see every film they put out regardless. It's just now they're having a harder time reaching beyond that scope, even with extremely positive word of mouth. It definitely is a weird predicament for them to be in. I feel like they waited too long to finally start realizing we gotta try again. They can't just coast to $1 billion every time. And I think the path going forward for Marvel isn't to like, I don't know, fall back into old ways or something and make like really uninteresting, boring super slop, but instead continue with this focus of making things that are actually interesting and good, like Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four, but find a way to do it without the extraordinarily bloated budget. They are not going to be making as much money as they used to. They're going to need to find a way to deliver quality productions for a fraction of the cost. They can't just mindlessly dump hundreds of millions of dollars into every single Marvel everything these days. That time is behind us now. That is in the past. I think they need to start analyzing their budgets a little tighter and figuring out ways of being creative with it so they can deliver these same kind of movies that are strong but without eating a loss on them. Like Thunderbolts, that's a film that probably didn't need $450 million box office run to break even. You probably could have delivered that same level of film for less money, so that way the 380 that it did generate could have already been at your break.
This is exactly what I was just saying. This is exactly what I was just saying. Like you could make these movies less expensive, and that would constraints make creativity. Like when you're under constraints, you get creative with solving the problem. So now, when you don't have that much money to do the things that you want, you get to work around it. You get to really focus on the details, the intricacies of telling a story, and then this way you tell a better story because you're more invested in telling the story, and then because it's cheaper, you invariably make your profits larger because if it's a huge success, you're going to get so much more money than you put into making the film. And even if it's just a decent, performance, you're probably still going to make good profit because if you make it under 200 million or 250 max and it brings in 380, that's not super big, but that's still a profit, as opposed to $70 million losses on every movie you make. Come on, there's only so much money we can burn, Marvel. What are we doing?
even. Like I feel like there's definitely ways. Like I think these budgets are super overblown, which isn't specific, like exclusive to just Marvel. It's Hollywood in general. Like that fucking Netflix stinker, Electric State had a what $300 million budget or something, and that was abominable. Like it really feels like there's some kind of fraud.
Hold on. One of the most expensive films ever made, and I never heard of it. I have okay. I'm exaggerating. I mean, I've heard of the name in passing, but like it didn't really. By the way, I'm in Africa, so half these things really need to be big enough for us to get it over here, you know, and we're like, what? $320 million is wild. That's all I can say.
something, and that was abominable. Like it really feels like there's some kind of fraudulent bookkeeping going on over there, some kind of fucking scam. But that's a topic I've already yapped about a lot. Point is, for Marvel now, they probably realize that the audience isn't just going to blindly eat everything that they feed them. They need to keep delivering good movies, but they need to find a way to make them for less money so that way the box office runs don't need to be colossal, historic, record breaking performances in order to generate any level of profit. Though,
Yeah, I mean, I understand exactly what he's trying to say, and I think the change that we're seeing now is just the audience no longer willing to give away their money for free to Marvel. That's just what it is. Now Marvel realizes, oh, we have to earn their attention now. We have to earn their loyalty. Before it was we could just give them anything we want and they're gonna watch it regardless. But now it's like, look, if you don't give us quality, we're not gonna show up. And that's what's reflecting in the box office numbers. Like you guys have been on a terrible track run. We're not just gonna give you our trust because you've betrayed it too many times. You know. So I think that's what's going on here. If you enjoyed this video, please smash the like button. Please subscribe. For more things like this. What would you want me to react to? What would you want me to watch? I'd appreciate any sort of feedback. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. 10 out.